Hi everybody, I'm Bill Sanders and this is Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection. Today what I'm going to do, I'm going to talk about my favorite watches, my favorite watch brands. And while these may not go along with everyone else, I just sort of like, well, this is this is what I think. Um, the first two are a couple of German watches. One is the Glashütte Original. One of the things about Glashütte Original is that if you take a look at the secondary market, you can find a lot of great discounts. And I like that. I mean, you can save money, but I also like the fact that they're very good watches that they make. They are currently owned by Swatch, but they haven't totally fixed them up with silicone hairsprings. There are a lot of these available at great discounts, both on in the secondary market and the pre-owned market. And you take a look at this, and you take a look at some Longa, which I like as well, but they're very expensive. These are well-made watches, the Glashütte Original, that are more affordable. Now, the Laco, this is another watch company that makes very affordable watches. And this particular one, the Replica 55, has the movement is called the Laco 97. And it's 97 because it has the movement of 6497-1, which is an 18,000 VPH, nice, slow, steady movement, which I happen to like. Now, the 6497 typically has a small seconds at 9 o'clock. They've done something to it. They've modified it so that it has a central second. So, I mean, Laco's not just slapping something in there and calling it a day. The Replica 55 is a big watch, 55 millimeters, and it's based on the German Air Force watch from early in the Second World War that was used in, it's called Observation, and the replica of it is basically Laco replicating something that had been made a long time ago, but this one has a Swiss movement in it. Now the next two are two brands I like, but it's a little problematic. First of all, I like Vacheron Constantin 10. I like them in almost a visceral sense. I've had three or four of them, and I still have one. And the thing I like about Vacheron Constantin, they have good variety. Some watch companies don't. They'll have something all the same, but I like the variety of Vacheron Constantin has. From 2016 on, they've had some great new movements that have been in their watches. The 5100 in their overseas, and the 4400, and it seems like in everything else, and all of their hand wound watches have a 4400. This particular one is triple calendar 1942. I like the looks of it. Now, here's the thing about this particular model. They had two of them, one with red red date numbers around the edge of the dial, and then one with blue ones. Well, I guess not that many people like the red ones, so they dropped it. And what I found on where you can find these are on the secondary market, and I found they're about $2,000 less than the ones with blue ones. Well, I like the red ones to begin with, so if this I thought I mean, they are expensive. There's no two ways about it, but they're not stratospheric expensive, and you can find some really good buys on these watches. They're very good ones. Now, Patek Philippe is a little more problematic. One of my most loved watches I ever had was a Patek Philippe Calatrava from, I think it was 1968. And that watch was, until the day I sold it, was perfect. The only thing about it was too small, and I found myself, well, I'm not wearing the thing, so I thought, well, maybe it's time to sell it. Now, at some point, I think it's 2009, I'm not sure the exact date, but I think that's it. Patek Philippe decided to put silicone hairsprings in their watches, and there's lots of good reasons that they have, but I like the more traditional metal hairsprings that you can make adjustments to, and some other things that I really like about them. They're not silicone for one thing. Now, before they started putting silicone hairsprings in their watches, uh, Patek Philippe had what was called the Geneva seal, and but the same watches later came out with silicone hairsprings. Now this is a 5124 Patek Philippe. I just love this watch. Have for years, but for some reason I never bought it. I always find something I like better, But I still like this one. And this one I found, but I like the ones without the silicone hairsprings. And so I just would look if they have the Geneva seal, that means they don't have the silicone hairspring. They're the older ones. Great watches, great brand. Now here are two brands I really really like: H. Moser et Compagnie and Parmigiani Fleurier. Now the H. Moser has gone through a lot of changes. I've got one of my big H. Moser Henry double hairsprings on, and I got this watch because of the wonderful, put it that way, mechanical technology that went in for double hairsprings to give to sort of offsetting torque. One that I like a lot is this Heritage, this new one, the Heritage Dual Time. It's just I like this. I like sort of that Heritage look that they have. Now, Parmigiani Fleurier is another story. Most people, I don't know why. I don't know what was missed on here. Michel Parmigiani was one of the guys that most people don't realize that he and Daniel Roth were both the ones who helped save Breguet. Breguet, back in the 80s, I think, is ready to go in the tank, and the Chaumet brothers came along, they bought it, and they hired Daniel Roth and to some extent Michel Parmigiani. So, I mean, this guy's really good. And so when he started his own company, basically the Sandoz Family Foundation said, hey, you want your own label? And so he started making them. Now, he had a style that a lot of people didn't like. But to me, I liked them. And that's more than me than anything else. But the best part about it were they great prices. They were highly discounted because they weren't that popular. Most of the older ones are gone now at these great prices, but there were some left. I found one of my favorite is the Toric chronometre. It's chronometer. That is equal any day of the week to a Patek Philippe Calatrava or a Vacheron Constantin Patrimony. Just love that watch. Now, for great buys, the Metrograph, the list price was $13,500. I found one. In fact, there are more than one for around $5,950 at this place called the Watch Outlet. When they're gone, all of the good deals are going to be gone on that. One of the things they got a new CEO at Parmigiani, and their whole style is very, I'll put it this way, it's not that kind of, it doesn't look like the kind of style that Parmigiani had, except in certain ways. One of my favorite all-time watches is their Ovale Pantograph, and that's the one with the hands. It has an oval shape, and so when the hands go to the 9 and 3, they have to go in, and then when they go to 12 and 6, they come out. Magnificent piece of horology. Even with discounts, I can't afford that. I think originally it was around 70,000, and I found one for around 40 or 39, something like that, brand new. I still can't afford it, but I appreciate the horology in it. And so if you're thinking of getting a really good watch that you can still find a few discounted versions on, this is hard to beat. Now, the next two watches are sort of the watches that they're a couple of my favorite. FP Journe. I have an FP Journe Chronomat Souverain, just like that one. There's something about that watch I just love. The problem is that the prices of these have gone right through the ceiling. I've seen these up around $80, $90, $100,000, which is not anywhere near what I paid for mine when I got it, and I got it pre-owned. And but there's something about it. There's something about that watch. Wind it up, you flip it over. It's got gold bridges and plates on it. It has a dual barrels in parallel. Just love that watch. Now, Lang & Heim is sort of a funny story. The founder, and really the guy who made the great majority of movements they have today, is Marco Lang. Marco Lang, I don't know what happened, but he had to leave, and somebody else ended up owning it, and so. But they kept all of his works. I have the Frederick II, and the Frederick II, or Friedrich, however you pronounce it, and the Lang & Heim has a caliber 6 in it. And the caliber 6 is used in the Frederick II, the Frederick III, and there's a homage to an observatory that they have with the same movement. Basically, it's the same watch with different dials on it. This, you can see at the bottom down there, you can see the movement, and it has what's called a trigonal bridge. And the thing about the trigonal bridge, it allows you to see so much more of the movement. I think one of the things that Marco Lang was very proud of, and rightfully so, he made these really great movements. They ran at 18,000 semi-oscillations per hour. Just wonderful, wonderful watches. Again, this is my taste. Now, these next two are a little later in as far as taste is concerned. One is Daniel Roth. Daniel Roth, now he was the guy who really turned Breguet around as far as a watchmaker and designer. And he had his own company for a while, and then the Chaumet brothers, they tried to corner the market on diamonds and somehow lost their shirt and went bankrupt and almost went to jail. So poor old Roth was sort of left high and dry. But he formed, after Breguet, so he formed his own company, and it was called Daniel Roth. And he made these really wonderful watches. There are a lot of ETA. I have another one of these with a Zenith El Primero movement, a chronograph. This one, I forgot what's in this one. This is one of the most fun and interesting watches I have. It's a Metropolitan 24 cities. And the thing about it that's cool, it's got these little pushers here so that when it's daylight savings or standard time comes, you just push one button, it either pops forward or backwards. Neat watch. This one right here is the Daniel Roth Premier Retrograde Calendar. Love that watch because I like retrogrades, and this one's sort of got looks like double retrogrades, but it's not. The numbers at the top are retrograde. The ones at the bottom is simply a 31-day calendar, a hand calendar. Now, another one is Roger Dubuis, and I mentioned before that one of the things that Patek Philippe lost was the Geneva seal. They just didn't want the Geneva seal watches to have silicon in them, and so there was some beef about that. But there aren't a lot of watches with the Geneva seal. One company that has them, and in most of their watches, is Roger Dubuis. And they have a Roger Dubuis. I think this particular one is an RD14 movement. So you've got a movement by a famous watchmaker, and you've got a very interesting watch. They have these big, solid sports watches, divers. like the Easy Diver, and then they have a Sympathy line and and then the new ones have a lot of skeletonized in the front here, which I don't care for too much, to be honest. But boy, I tell you, you want to find a good buy. You want to have a Geneva Seal watch in your collection. These things are great for that. By the way, too, Vacheron Constantin also has the Geneva Seal too. Now, these two watches are by companies with just really good movements in them. First of all, the Jaeger-LeCoultre, they used to be a movement maker. That's all they did. They made movements, and I think most of the Holy Trinity at one time or another had their movements. And then at some point they decided to have their own movements, their own watches that go along with their movements, and they came out with some wonderful watches. Well priced. These are ways to get, I think, into really good horology, really excellent horology. This particular one, the Master Control Geographic, has sort of something like a world timer at the bottom, probably GMT, and then it has a hand date, power reserve indicator. Just a cool watch, and it won't break the bank. Now, Harbinger 2 is another one where the movement, they have this one movement called the A11 that Richard Harbinger and his wife Maria, they are the two at Harbinger 2, developed. And the first watch, I think, that came out with the A11 movement was called the Felix. I have one. To this day, it's still, of all of my watches I have that are far more expensive than this has still got the best movement overall. I mean, in terms of it's the most accurate one. Little Bauhaus, I think, if you like that. Great everyday watch. If you want a mechanical watch to carry around and have one by a really top watchmaker. So many of these, even Jaeger-LeCoultre, you don't know who the watchmaker was that designed and made that watch. Harbinger 2, you do know. So that's one of the things that's special about it. Now, this final one is sort of brings you up to date where I am now. This company that a lot of people haven't heard of before is called Agenor. People in the watch business have all heard about it. This was developed by a gentleman, a really well-known watchmaker named Jean-Marc Wiederreck. And in 2007, the Grand Prix d'Horlogerie de Genève decided, well, we're going to have a watchmaker of the year. And he was the very first one that was given that honor. And one day I counted the number of watches with his movements or modules that won a Grand Prix award, and it was like up at the very top, up near second or third. They don't get credit for it, the guy who won it. A lot of them were from Van Cleef and Arpels. Let's see, who else? There was Hermes won some, and some other ones as well. But I mean, it's just all over the place, and most people don't realize it. Here are three I have. Van Cleef and Arpels, the movement is called the AGH 6029. Now, this is not a module. It's an entire movement that Jean-Marc Wiederreck made. It's dual time, very thin. This one is white gold. It has a platinum micro rotor in it. Amazing watch. This Chaumet it's called the Chaumet Dandy Arty Open Face. And the thing about this, the module in it is something called Agenise. And there are these special gears that have little springs in them so they don't slip. When you have a small second or something away from the center and away from the main sort of line of the wheel train, you got to have, you start getting a lot of flutters and things in the second hand or whatever hand you have. Well, this particular watch uses two of these Agenise wheels in it, gearing, and the whole thing together was called the 4202 P, that wheel on it, it's amazing just watching the wheel go around. Underlying that, the base movement, is an ETA. Now, the final one is one that a group of us that we call ourselves Lyrique, we decided to work with Agenor, starting with an Agenor movement, and to build our own watch with them. Voutilanen and Caton did the case for us. Metalim did the dial. Metalim was we found that because that was the dial company that made the dial for Philippe Dufour's Simplicity 37. And the hands are by this hand maker we didn't know about, but turns out to be the best in the world, I think, Fiedler. So this is sort of where I've come and gone. I still like to find great deals on a Daniel Roth or a Roger Dubuis, but these other ones that I've discovered, I just like. It's so much fun to get involved in it. Anyway, those are the ones I like. I'd like to hear from you what your opinions are. Like, oh, Bill, how come you didn't talk about this? I didn't talk about other ones because these are simply my taste, not the world's taste. Let me know what you think. This is an opportunity to subscribe if you like. Until next time, this is Bill Sanders for Watch Art Side, the art and science of watch collection.